Welcome back to Jess Checks Out. I am Jess, and today we're checking out my best and most rewarding books of 2022 with a few caveats involved. So let's get started. So here's my caveat. Got it? I am not reviewing certain books because of this whole graphic that the HarperCollins Union put up, and I'm going to explain a little bit more into why on this one. So I loved some of these books I'm going to mention, but I can't talk about them, and I'm going to mention them because they are such good books, and I'm so angry I cannot actually talk about them. In my worst video, there weren't that many. I was about most of them. Like, my hatred of one of the books I couldn't talk about is, I will get to it eventually as soon as this is over. But the thing is HarperCollins, the company, is trying to union bust. And I'm not here for that, because when I was working at a huge grocery store for those outside of the area, the region, and they own a bunch of stores, not just they're like the largest grocery retailer in the US. And I was part of a union in that group. And I thought that was so important for me because there were a couple times I needed to use them to keep my job. So I am very pro-union, right? And so I can't support HarperCollins as much as I want to, and it's killing me because there's so many books that I want to talk about that are them, because I unintentionally read a ton of them on, and I accidentally bought one, which really kind of pisses me off, but I didn't realize it was an imprint for them because it's very hard. They're not very obvious on what is what, and so again, this graphic thing is very helpful. I will see if I can find the tweet to link to it below so you can see it on bigger, but basically I can't go across that line because I think that you should have the right to have a job that is secure and you make enough and you can function, because let's face it, without some of the professionals doing this job, we wouldn't have some of these books. They would not be nearly as high and beautiful and wonderful and amazingly developed as they are. And so I want to point that out right now, because there are 5 that were actually going to be in my most favorite books, and those were The Ex-Hex, Little Darlings, Earth Eater, Ophi's Ghost, and The Lady from the Black Lagoon. So every single one of those were books that I loved, adored them. Like, they were literally going to be ones I was going to spend some time on, but I can't. So that's the beginning rant and the caveat. And then the rest of these books that I love them equally. Like, do not get me wrong, I had an amazing reading year last year, 2022, but I wanted to point that out. All right, so let's go. Let's start. First up, Love, Lucy, which was an audiobook read by Lucy Arnaz, and it was in fact Lucille Ball's autobiography memoir that they found kind of stuck in a box, and the family opened it up, and oh my god, it's a wealth of things. If you love the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, you will love this. It deeply goes into that studio system coming up in poverty in the early part of the 20th century, how to go beyond it, how to move beyond trauma. Talks about like the rise of HUAC and all that kind of stuff, and there was a lot of really cool information there, and I think that I bought the actual book. It's on back order now. It takes about 3 weeks for books to come here, if not longer, because that's to come from the US, because it's the English version. So I'm working on getting that copy because I loved it that much. But there was also so much information there. Like, Lucille Ball was a badass. Like, she spent a ton of the studio's money to get out of the contract just so she could do some movies and some shows. And the fact that, like, how she and Desi Arnaz put together Desilu was amazing, because apparently, like, Desi Arnaz was really, really good at creating strong companies. And just, she talks about the marriage to him, but also, like, her later marriages, and she didn't want to have those and come out until, after the people she loved is dead, and I think she was supposed to be as well, but, she kind of scrapped this one because I think it was too painful for her, honestly. Highly recommend this book. It's amazing. Okay, then you have Witchlings. Witchlings. Okay, so say you take a school in Scotland and you eliminate all the bad elements, but you put like a Latin American twist on it a bit, and you put in some girl groups kind of getting along and like not get along and finding your group even when you don't want to be there. That is who you are. And it's very interesting. I was so enamored with this book that I'm excited about it. It's a middle grade, but it's got a lot of really cool lessons about don't judge people, like learn what's going on, find out more. There's always more than what you see. The messaging was phenomenal to me. I found it to be very well done. Like it's a middle grade that, in a few years I can't wait for my child to read, because there's lessons in there about female groups and, forming bonds. And I say female because they're girls, but there's also like adults that are having things going on. There's like this great way of creating a community for young girls and how to maintain that and to not always expect things. It was beautiful. And then there is Nettle Bone, which, oh my God, Nettle Bone, so good. I remember reading that. So I was pregnant when I read it last year, and it was interesting because I was reading it pregnant when there's this whole thing about how, a lot of the women die, and I think my recollection of it is it's kind of like a twist on the idea of Bluebeard a little bit. Not as much as The Seventh Daughter, which I'll talk about in a second, but it's definitely got that feel to it, but with a little bit of a different twist. I found it so fun. Oh my God, I loved it. Nettle Bone was just straight up fun. And you don't always get that with books, right? So it's very adventure-y, and I kept seeing it in like cinematic versions of Sleeping Beauty. Like that's how I could find it in my head, like that same sweeping narrative. It wasn't Technicolor, like kind of Technicolor, but that's just how my brain processed it. Even though it was a pretty grim story, I know some people loved it and some people hated it. I'm on the loved it side. I know Laura from A Book Circus loved it as well, and I can't wait to read T. Kingfisher's books that I can make up this year, and I'm going to be doing some of her backlist throughout the year, just because it's on Scribd audio, and I love it. My husband's trying to get me to read her for like a decade, and I'm so mad I did not listen to him. It's not that I didn't listen to him, it's I lost the book file that he bought me, so I have to figure out how to get back to that. And right now I can't actually, like, it's hard for me to read, like, to process what I'm reading. It's easier for me to hear it right now. So, then of course we have The Seventh Bride, which, oh my God, I love this one. Okay, so this is a YA retelling again of Bluebeard. And in this, you have got this, like, almost Dali-esque view of the world at certain times. And it's, the Seventh Bride is a milliner's daughter, but she's clever. She's not sure how she's clever. And she's constantly fighting against what he wants her to do. And just T. Kingfisher, Ursula Vernon, does a really good job of creating characters that are strong. They have their own views about things, but also strong in internal fortitude. And I love that about a book, right? Love that. Okay. Then we have Blood, Water, Paint, which is about Artisma, name under here somewhere, the painter, and it's another YA. It's a historical fiction. Man, that one was a hard read because it actually goes into the essay and what the artist had to go through and being a woman and the, Renaissance that could really paint and be underappreciated and undervalued. And I was so impressed with the quality of the writing, almost the way the writer painted what she was trying to say. it was phenomenal to me. I was blown away. I think that that's maybe something that I don't see talked about much because it's been out for a while, but I like to read a lot of backlist or older books because I grab what interests me. And, as much as, current titles and stuff like that interest me, I'm a lot more interested in some of the other stuff along the way as well. Okay, then we have The Haunting of Hill House, which surprisingly I love. So I'm not really a horror fan, but this is less horror and more supernatural, and I think that helps. It's not as much as the other one. I talked about it in one of my other videos. I will link to. I think it's my November wrap up. I will talk about that one a little bit more in there. But I felt like it was an amazing book story, and it captivated me in a way that if you've ever lived in a haunted house, especially if you're from the South, you will understand some of these movements that Shirley Jackson is talking about. The echoing noises and the, you are made to stay here. Let me get into your psyche kind of reality. Okay. Then we have Scales and Sensibility. So in Scales and Sensibility, this was Stephanie Burgess's look at what if the Regency era had dragons, like tiny little dragons you could put on your shoulder. Love it. It's very Jane Austen without being dry as frick that Jane Austen is, right? Because I cannot stand Jane Austen, in case anyone doesn't know. I don't like her. But I really liked the way this one was written. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of value. Like, the name of the character is Eleanor. And if you don't know, that was almost my daughter's name. Not because of the book. It was my love of the name Eleanor. But this one was just very fun. It was very interesting. It's this poor relation that suddenly has a dragon, and oh my God, what is she supposed to do? And there's, these different things that the dragon can do that bring it out. There's a dragon expert. I love this one. I actually recorded it for Deconstructing Damsels, but unfortunately I didn't release it because there's a lot of echoing. And then there was, basically the essential shutting down of Deconstructing Damsels. So there's that. After that, there is Of Women and Salt. Oh my God. This book was mind-blowing. So the last book was fun and rompy and romance. And Of Women and Salt, oh my God, that one hurt my soul. That one was so good, though. It talks about immigration in a way that I think that maybe I'm an immigrant now, where I am in Germany. Like, I'm not an expat or anything. I'm an immigrant. Like, let's be very clear what I am. I'm not going to, pretty it up, right? But it talks about an experience that I didn't have because I have so many privileges to being who I am that even in the position I am here, I'm still better off than some of the other people that come here. Like, I wasn't forced to be here because of conflict. I wasn't forced, because my life was, at risk. It's nothing like that. So I had the privilege of being an immigrant versus a refugee. And I think some of the characters in this book were also Of Women refugees. But you see how they kind of move through and find ways and what sticks. I found it to be very compelling. It was such a great audiobook. I was so interested in it. And I think that I can't wait to read more by her because I felt like her writing stuck with me. The author, I don't remember the name of the author. But the author itself, the word she chose really stood out to me as a reader. And then we have Scars Like Wings, which I did a vlog on. I will link it somewhere below. But Scars Like Wings talks about what happens if you suddenly have scars that just form what's considered normal. And how do you navigate that? How do you navigate the survival of a trauma and being forced to talk about it and be around it and communicate with it? And it's inner family trauma, right? It's not just the character's trauma, but it's a trauma within the family because of everything that happened to it. Oh my God. Scars Like Wings blew my mind. It's one of the few YAs still on my shelf, actually. I usually don't read a ton of YA, this list notwithstanding, but I was just mind blown how amazingly in depth it was, and the heartstrings, like, because I was very angry at the book in the beginning, and then the more I read, the more I was just so impressed with the skill and the empathy put in the book. And then, of course, we have Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one I ended up picking out and reading it, but I had forgotten that Elizabeth from Reading Riley had already read it, and she talked about it. And I actually talked about it in the comments. So I'm going to link all these people below, by the way. I'm going to tag them and put them in. But Elizabeth had a video about sliding doors. I'll see if I can find that video too, because she talks about different kind of versions of that. Because in case you don't know what sliding doors is, that's the Gwyneth Paltrow movie where her life changes on two different tracks when she walks through sliding doors. Does she make the train or doesn't she, basically? And in that, she finds things that she didn't want to find along the way. And then Maybe in Another Life splits based on what happens at a crucial moment for the character and how very different things diverge. And the thing is it's not just her life, but it's the people around her, because when you change one thing, a lot of the other things change along with it because other decisions have to be made. I was so impressed with how thoughtful the decisions were. Again, in my disappointing reads of 2022, I had Malibu Rising, and my best ones I had Maybe Another Life. It's a very compelling, rootable book. Like, you're rooting for the characters. And I say characters because there's two different ones. Like, there's two different timelines. So you have two different characters in this same character. So I thought it was fantastic. Okay, now the next three all have videos, so I'm going to talk about them very quickly. You have Lessons in Chemistry. I have a whole video on that. I like it when you look into things. I love historical fiction. I find it very innovative. Obviously, I talked about Blood, Water, Paint. I think I put the name of that. Yeah, Blood, Water, Paint. But this one is, set in the 1950s and 60s. Women trying to be in STEM roles in a society that won't let them or doesn't want them there. I mean, Madame Curie did whole radium, but didn't matter, right? And so that's still very endemic, I think, in the STEMs now. I'm not STEMmy, so I don't know offhand, but I still found it amazing. Okay, and then you have, in one video, you have The Christmas Hirelings and A Christmas Carol. And these are both Victorian fictions, that have a little bit of hope for them, surprisingly. I liked Mary Elizabeth Braden. I read her before. I read her in a Victorian class because I had some really badass teachers that really liked that kind of stuff. And A Christmas Carol was way more uplifting than I thought after, watching the movies. It's very different, and I found that, I talked about it more in the video, I found that very entertaining to me. And then The Christmas Hirelings, there's a little bit of feeling of hope. Again, that's like, if I'm reading Christmas stuff, that's what I want. I want a little bit of hope, right? Editing me anyway. Hence the nice black screen, because I'm not getting dressed for this. I'm sorry to tell you. But I forgot The Vanishing Half, which I absolutely loved last year. I was so impressed with the way that Britt Bennett put together this terrific view of what passing was like in a time where passing gave you freedoms that you would not have otherwise. And I really felt it was very well developed, well put together. I was very interested in it. And in 2023, I will be reading Passing, which again is about passing, but it's a classic literature by Nella Larson, I believe. And I just felt like it did so much. It had so much power and so much emphasis in The Vanishing Half, and how sisterhood, family, devastation, loss, love, all this kind of stuff can really put together and create this interesting world of creation and how things can not always be as they appear, and it's got this great historical fiction value, and I love this one, and I cannot believe I forgot to put it on there. Like I said, I'll talk more about it when I do the passing eventually in the classics for 2023 prompt, but loved it. And I think this is everything that the book Black Cake wanted to be. And I feel like Black Cake failed in this way because Black Cake had too much going on. While there was a lot going on in the Vanishing Half, it still felt cohesive. Whereas I think in Black Cake, there were too many perspectives and too many storylines and too many like dots and zig and zags. Whereas with the Vanishing Half, they did a very good job, or they, meaning the author and the editing team, really created a strong narrative. Loved it. Just wanted to talk about it before I go because I didn't think about it until I was actually looking at passing on my classics list. I was like, I forgot the one I wanted to talk about. Okay, now we shall continue on. So those are my best and most rewarding reads 2022. Do we share any? Do you have one that you would like to put in instead? Or some of my disappointments, part of your best? I don't know. I've had that happen a couple times reading the list lately. Or watching the list, I guess I should say. And let me know. What are you seeing? What are you seeing? Right? I look forward to it. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Again, as I said in the worst videos, people are liking things and YouTube is not showing them up, and I don't know why. So I've actually physically watched my husband like my video and it's not showing up. So let me know and we will see what's going to happen. If you don't want to leave a comment or whatever, put a light bulb in the comments because you had a moment of, light bulb or a gift. One of the two. All right, guys. February should have a little bit less videos because I don't have to put all these things out. So it should be a little bit spaced out a little bit better and give me time to create a little bit more content that's more long term. I definitely want to finish a couple of other things before the end of February. So, all right. See you then. Bye in my sleepy state.